morning everyone. Today's topic is long QT syndrome and short QT syndrome. So both of them fall under the domain of inherited arrhythmias. Inherited arrhythmias are caused by mutations in genes which can encode cardiac ion channels and associated proteins. These are primarily electrical disorders. Otherwise, there can be structural hereditary cardiomyopathies which are secondary to mutations in cardiac structural proteins. Together, they contribute 15 to 20% of sudden cardiac deaths, which can also occur in younger patients. So that is why it is of primary importance to a cardiologist. So the genetic overlap that we have seen between the electrical and structural genes encoding which are primarily called channelopathies. So in electrical we are going to discuss LQT1, LQT2, which are caused by KCNQ1 and KCNH2. Also short QT1, 2, 3, which are caused by KCNJ2 and KCNQ1 and KCNH2. As we can see, long QT syndrome is the definition of a congenital long QT syndrome includes a QTc of more than 480 millisecond, which is seen on repeated 12 lead ECGs with a long QT syndrome risk score, which we will see later on, that is called the Schwartz score, which is more than 3, or there is presence of a confirmed pathogenic mutation irrespective of the QT duration in the absence of secondary causes for QT prolongation. Also, if there is a QTc of more than 460 milliseconds in repeated 12 lead ECGs in patients with unexplained syncopal episodes constitutes long QT syndrome. So the estimated prevalence is between 1 in 5,000 subjects. First family, which was described by Jervil and Lange Nielsen in 1957, consisted of 4 children with deafness, recurrent syncope, sudden cardiac death and QT prolongation on the ECG with autosomal recessive inheritance. And Romano in 1963 and Ward in 1964 described families in which the affected members had QT prolongation, recurrent syncope and sudden death, but there was no deafness and their pattern of inheritance was autosomal dominant. The International Long QT Syndrome Registry was established in 1979 and at present there are 1276 proband identified LQTS families. We should know the action potential of a cardiac muscle cell, which will help us in better understanding the LQT syndrome. The phase 0 consists of rapid depolarization in which there is influx of sodium. Sodium entry into the cardiac cell causes phase 0 in which the action potential shoots from minus 90 to plus 10 millivolts. After that there is phase 1 in which there is influx of transient potassium channels, followed by which there is phase 2 in which influx of calcium balances the potassium influx outflux, and because of that there is a plateau is achieved. After which there is phase 3 in which there is a continued efflux of potassium from the cell, which causes repolarization and causes the action potential to reach the resting potential. The various genes involved in functioning of these ion channels are enumerated here, and of importance to us is, as we can see in phase 3, there is KCNQ1, which causes IKS mediated efflux of potassium. So a loss of function of loss of function of KCNQ1 causes long QT1. When there is loss of function, there is reduced efflux of potassium, and because of that there is continuous prolongation of repolarization causing long QT. Similarly, the gene involved in long QT2, which is KCNH2, is seen to cause IKS mediated disease. Apart from that, there is long QT3, which is caused by SCN5A mutation, which we can see in phase 0. It is a isodium mediated disease. Here there is gain of function of channel, which causes prolongation of QT. There is genetic and molecular understanding because for which we have seen the delayed repolarization, and which we have seen in mutation in alpha subunit of potassium currents, which we saw previously LQT1 and LQT2. LQT1 was acting on slowly acting repolarizing cardiac current through IKS, and LQT2 because of IKR that was rapidly acting repolarizing cardiac current. Other mutations in auxiliary beta subunits have also been described, which occurs in LQT5 and LQT6. LQT5 there is mutation of KCNQ1 and LQT6 there is mutation of KCNH2, and mutations of sodium channel protein, that is SCN5A, causes LQT3. Other LQTS related disorders have also been seen, as in enchirin B, which is a gene which is a cytoskeleton membrane adapter that causes LQT4. Other described are Anderson-Tawil syndrome, which is LQT7, LQT8 Timothy syndrome because of CACNA1C gene, LQT9 because of caveolin-3 gene, and LQT10 because of SCN4B gene. These have primarily skeletal muscle abnormalities have also been described. For example, in Anderson-Tawil syndrome and also in Timothy syndrome, where there is syndactyly in both hands and feet. So there are certain biophysical mechanisms responsible, which we have just enumerated, which means that there is reduction in repolarizing current in patients with potassium channel mutation, which was loss of function, because of which there is at least 50% reduction in channel function that has been seen in haplo insufficient phenotype. Also in dominant negative, there is more than 50% reduction in the channel current. Otherwise, because of gain in function in sodium channel, there was continuous leakage of sodium into the channel, which results in prolongation of action potential, which is seen in SCN5A mutation, that is LQT3. So the ECG assessment is the primary importance in LQT syndrome. We have seen the QT interval is to be assessed in at least 3 to 5 cardiac cycles. The starting from QRS complex to the end of the T wave in leads 2 and V5 or V6 with the longest value is should be used, and it should be corrected for heart rate using either the Bazet's formula, Fredericia formula, Framingham formula or Hodges formula. The suggested cutoff values in an adult male, more than 450 is considered prolonged QTC. In an adult female, more than 470 millisecond is considered prolonged QTC, and in a younger population between 1 to 15 years, more than 460 millisecond is considered prolonged QTC. So 20 to 25% of genetically confirmed long QT syndrome may have a normal range of QTC. In such patients, provocative tests are of importance. The provocative tests that can be used are a change in position from supine to standing position, recovery phase of exercise testing, infusion of epinephrine. These can also unmask LQTS in patients with normal QTC at resting ECG. So on provocation, in LQTS1 there is prolongation of QT during and after cessation of exercise. In LQTS2 there is initial prolongation followed by shortening of QT and promotion of notch on descending T waves. In LQTS3 there is simply shortening of UT interval. In T wave pattern, which can be seen in LQT1, this is a typical broad based T wave pattern. LQT2 there is a typical bifid T wave pattern, and in LQT3 there is a late onset peaked biphasic T wave. As we have seen in LQTS1, there is a broad based T wave. In LQT2 there is a bifid T wave, and in LQTS3 there is prolonged and peaked T wave. LQTS1 is primarily 68% of times associated with exercise, whereas LQTS2 is more related to emotional stress as seen in 49%, and LQTS3 usually occurs at rest in sleep as seen in 64%. Other ECG findings include macroscopic T wave alterance. It is a marker of high electrical cardiac instability. Also, notches on T wave are seen in LQT2 and sinus pauses can be seen in LQT3. Clinical assessment, patient can present with unexplained sudden death in a young individual, or there can be syncopal event in the absence of acquired causes of QT prolongation. Also, there can be family history and long-term pattern of similar episodes, and comorbidities such as congenital deafness should be looked for. Here we see the triggers which are seen with the long QT syndrome. LQTS1 is associated with swimming and exertion. LQTS2 is seen with emotional stress, auditory triggers and in postpartum period. LQTS3, the arrhythmias usually occur in sleep at rest. The Schwartz score for diagnosis of long QT syndrome, which was proposed in 1993, a score of more than 3 favors is high risk for LQTS. there are certain parameters and the points given to them. In an ECG which shows QTC more than 480, between 460 to 470 or about 450, the points are 3, 2 and 1. But the ECG can also show a torsades which is given 2 points. T wave alterance is given 1 point. T wave notches and is given 1 point, or bradycardia is given a half point. Otherwise, clinical history suggestive of syncope with stress is given 2 points, without stress is given 1 point. Congenital deafness associated is given 0.5 points. A family history in family members with confirmed LQTS is given 1 point, or an unexplained sudden death in a first order family member in less than 30 years is given 0.5 points. A score of more than 3 is high risk for LQTS, 1.5 to 3 is intermediate, and less than 1 is low risk. So we should know the role of genetic testing in in such inherited arrhythmias. So basically, in an exercise induced syncope, when the ECG is suggestive of QTC more than 460 millisecond, then we should advise the patient for genetic testing for LQTS. In LQTS, the evaluation is primarily clinically suspected with a prolonged QTC. Also, there is history of autopsy negative sudden cardiac death, or there can be a family history in LQTS. The utility is all diagnostic. It is useful for prognosis and also therapeutic because the treatment changes depending on the type of LQTS, which we will see further. Firstly, the risk stratification for life-threatening cardiac events in LQTS has to be seen. So, high risk are those with a history of abortic cardiac arrest, or there is a documented episode of torsades on an ECG. The intermediate risk patients are those with a time-dependent syncopal history or QTC prolongation to 500 milliseconds. Low risk are affected subjects without any history of prior syncope or QTC duration of less than 500 milliseconds. So, on a clinical presentation of index patient, the assessment should include medical history, family history, symptoms, 12 lead ECGs, 24-hour continuous Holter monitorings, event ECG if there is available, exercise ECG and imaging. Also, after that, there should be manual confirmation of QTC duration. If the QTC is more than 500 on repeated ECGs, then we have a high probability of LQTS and patient should undergo genetic testing. If the calculated LQTS risk score, that is the Schwartz score, if the risk is more than 3.5, then again they should undergo genetic testing. If it is between 1.5 to 3, then provocative tests should be done. And if the Q score is less than 1, it is low probability and we can keep them on follow up. Something like this can be an ECG of a patient with long QT syndrome. As we can see, there are typical bifid T waves are present. There are broad based T waves. Also, QTC duration is prolonged. Management of LQTS. Non-selective beta blockers like nadolol and propranolol are most effective drugs. Their antiarrhythmic effects are due to prevention of the early after depolarization by blocking the adrenergic driven boost of calcium current. Also, propranolol reduces the QTC by blocking the late sodium inward current. Sodium channel blockers like mexiletine, flecainide and ranolazine can also be used, especially in LQT3 patients who are responsive to sodium channel blockers. And mexiletine has also been shown to reduce QTC in LQT2 patients. Potassium supplementation is also effective because the conductance slope of the IKR channels depends on the extracellular potassium levels. Lumacaftor is a drug that has been shown to improve intracellular trafficking of the mutated protein products. It is helpful in patients with KCNH2 mutations. Left cardiac sympathetic denervation is performed in those patients who refuse ICD therapy, and those for whom beta blockers are not effective in preventing syncope and arrhythmias or are not tolerated. Also, on patients already taking beta blockers and already having ICD, if they have breakthrough events, then left cardiac sympathetic denervation can be done. It is also effective in LQT1 patients and in patients with multiple mutations. Device therapy, that is ICD, is indicated in a survived cardiac arrest on top of beta blockers. And pacemaker can be useful in LQT2 patients where arrhythmias are almost exclusively pause dependent. Also in LQT3, the QTC is prolonged at lower rates. So background pacing at higher rates, higher than spontaneous rate is beneficial to these patients. So in a long QT syndrome, in all patients, we should avoid QT prolonging drugs. In asymptomatic patient, when QTC is less than 470, beta blockers can be given. In QTC more than 470 asymptomatic, beta blockers are class 1 recommendation. For symptomatic and high risk patients, beta blocker is class 1 indication. Apart from that, if they are symptomatic while on beta blocker, or there is if they are symptomatic while on beta blocker, then ICD are considered, and also they should undergo gene specific add-on therapy. In patient with aborted cardiac arrest, beta blocker and ICD are class 1 indication, and despite such therapy, if they are still symptomatic, then they can undergo left cardiac sympathetic denervation. Coming to short QT syndrome, short QT syndrome is characterized by a short QT interval which is less than or equal to 340 millisecond, with increased propensity to atrial and ventricular arrhythmias and sudden cardiac death. There is gain of function in IKR, IKS and ICA which is implicated. It is inherited usually as an autosomal dominant pattern, and the peak of incidence is during first year of life, and another peak occurs at an older age. So this is again the action potential duration. We can see that there is increase in ICE calcium at phase 2, and also there is increased efflux of IKR, IKS in phase 3 of the action potential, which decreases the QT interval. The genes implicated in SQT1 to 5, primarily SQT1 to 3 occur because of change increase of efflux of IKR, IKS and IK1. The corresponding genes have been mentioned. Also in SQT4 and 5 are primarily related to mutation in calcium channels. The clinical presentation can be cardiac arrest, the probability of which is 40% by the age of 40 years. Also syncope is seen in 25% of patients. Atrial fibrillation is seen in 20%. Most events are seen during rest, sleep or even at ordinary activities. The diagnosis is by Golub criteria. The diagnostic criteria include, again it is a point based system, and high risk is 4 points, intermediate is 3 points and low risk is 2 points. For ECG, the corrected QT interval, if it is less than 370, it is given 1 point, less than 350 is 2 points, less than 330 is given 3 points. Intervals from J point to T peak, if it is less than 120 milliseconds, it is given 1 point. Clinical history wise, if there is history of sudden cardiac death, given 2 points. Documented polymorphic VT or ventricular fibrillation is given 2 points. Unexplained syncope is given 1 point, and atrial fibrillation is given 1 point. A family history, if there is a first or a second degree relative with high probability of short QT syndrome, given 2 points. If first or second degree relative had autopsy negative sudden cardiac death, given 1 point, and in sudden infant death syndrome is given 1 point. Genotype positive are given 2 points, and mutation of undetermined significance of a culprit gene, they are given 1 point. This can be a representative ECG of a patient presenting with short QT syndrome. Here the QT interval is less than 330. So management will be an ICD, which is given to patients with symptoms and patients with clinical manifestations, a positive EPS and family history or genetic testing. The drawback is there can be inappropriate shock due to T-wave oversensing. Quinidine blocks the potassium channels in IKR, ITO, IKS, IK1 and IK ATP channels, plus the calcium and the sodium channels. It produces effective QT interval prolongation and ventricular refractory periods. There can be ST segment lengthening and T-wave duration. There is decreased repolarization dispersion and prevention of VF induction in SQTS1 patients. Sotalol or quinidine, these are class 2B recommendations for patients with short QT syndrome diagnosis who qualify for an ICD but have a contraindication or refuse to it. Also in asymptomatic short QT patient having family history of sudden cardiac death, they can be given sotalol. And disopyramide prolongs the QT interval and ventricular effective refractory period in patients with SQTS1. It can also be an alternative therapy to quinidine in these patients. Thank you.